there was 9 months of slow starvation and a blockade that has really rendered this population as weak as it could be. So add to that bombing, shootings. We don't have all the numbers yet of how many people have been really killed. There are hundreds of people who are unaccounted for, thousands of people who are, tens of thousands of people who are congregated in the capital.
Welcome to Impact Investing TV.
Together, we will go on a global adventure, discovering the power of impact investing.
You will meet inspiring humans who are shaping a sustainable world for current and future generations.
There is no limit to the positive changes when we come together.
Let the journey begin. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 4 of season 7.
To all of those who are joining in the first time in this season, the theme is Impact Investing Worldwide, Uniting for a Sustainable Future.
Today is an emergency program to highlight one of the scariest happenings in our very own continent at Artsakh, or which the Russians and Azerbaijan people call Nagorno-Karabakh.
This should be another warning which we are receiving that one of our major social systems is collapsing worldwide. All this is being caused when people do not look at the impact of their businesses, investments, and actions.
That's correct, but can you tell a bit more by what do you mean by that?
The last many decades, we have been investing and doing business as normal without looking at the impact. For example, cheap labor and production made us keep our eyes closed to atrocities committed by Chinese on Tibetans and Falun Gong followers. Then cheap energy kept us keep our eyes closed to the actions of the Russians, whether in Syria, Georgia, Chechnya, and today we are all witnessing that in Ukraine. And now we are doing the same in Artsakh by Azerbaijan.
Well, let's be very honest today. Our investors, businesses, and governments have to now wake up and say, enough is enough. Enough of double morality, enough of hypocrisy. Otherwise, soon this is going to happen to you all, and you will have nowhere to flee to or hide. And all the beautiful and free societies and businesses you have built up will burn in front of your eyes. If you remember Rome at the very end.
So yes, when innocent people are being killed, children are being slaughtered, and major medias are saying nothing, and the leaders are looking somewhere else, then you are inviting the doom.
This is one of the strongest stories of encouraging everyone in the world to look at impact investment. And let's watch a very short video about the country we are going today before we invite our guest.
Started during the lunch break. It's the most disgusting way to do so because children were at school, parents were at work, families were basically separated and spread around the city. Have any water or food. We're witnessing a genocide in the 21st century when so many pledges to human rights were made, but we see that they mean nothing when it comes to some, national interest, economy interest, energy interest.
And you may recall.
And 120,000 Christians, 30,000 of them children, are held hostage by one dictator. This is not fiction. It's happening right now. To this siege, Essential life supplies such as food, medicine, and other necessities cannot reach Artsakh. People are starving, shops are closing, kids are left without food, hospitals stay without key medical supplies. There are constant gas, electricity, and internet cuts due to the lines being interrupted by Azeris. Dozens of people who have been separated from their families since December 12, 2022 cannot return to their homes. Though the people of Artsakh are very strong and stand the hardships, they may simply not survive if the siege continues.
So today we are going back to Artsakh, and with this I'd like to invite our guest of today, Sheila Paylan.
Hi. Thank you
Hi,
for having me.
Sheila.
Thank you. Hi.
How are you? Where are you right now?
I'm in Yerevan, Armenia, the capital.
All right. Sheila, I'd like to give a brief introduction of your background so our audience would know who we have as a guest today. So, Sheila, you are expert in international criminal law, human rights, and gender, and former legal advisor to the United Nations across countries and regions. You spent more than 15 years advising judges and senior officials of various United Nations-backed international criminal tribunals, including for Rwanda, the former Yugoslavia, and the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. From 2019 and to 21, you were appointed by the United Nations Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights as the legal advisor and sexual and gender-based violence specialist to a team of international experts mandated to assist the judicial and military authorities of the Democratic Republic of Congo with investigating and prosecuting war crimes, crimes against humanity, and gross human rights violations. Now you say you're based in Yerevan and regularly consult for a variety of international organizations, NGOs, think tanks, and governments. You also published a lot of extensively in academic and media platforms on the subject of international justice, self-determination, and the doctrine of the responsibility to protect. So thank you for finding time. I'm sure you're very busy to help us to understand the current situation in Artsakh and what can be done.
So Sheila, it seems that nearly every place in the world where the disaster has struck, you have been there. So what's your story? How did you come up to this?
Oh, my story. I'm born and raised in Canada, but as an ethnic Armenian and descendant of genocide survivors of the Armenian genocide that happened over 100 years ago, I always had a sense of injustice and wanting to fight impunity for these sorts of crimes. So I went to law school and I ended up becoming a human rights lawyer and focusing on trying to, make sure basically that nobody had to go through that again. I remember the Rwandan genocide and the wars in the former Yugoslavia happening when I was 14, and it really struck me. So I worked towards joining the UN to try to fight impunity for these sorts of crimes. I did that for 15 years. And then 3 years ago, when Azerbaijan launched its war against Artsakh, I basically dropped everything and ran over here. So trying to implement everything that I had learned and all my skills and experience to helping the Armenian people and seeking accountability for, war crimes and as a deterrent for future aggression. But unfortunately, there's a long way ahead because while I was here, Russia invaded Ukraine, and it doesn't seem like the world is getting any brighter. So we have a lot more work to do than I thought.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. And we've seen a short video from Artsakh, but maybe can you give us an overview of the current humanitarian situation in Artsakh as of now? So what's going on right now after Azerbaijan started bombing this region?
Yeah, I mean, anything could be. It's so rapidly changing by the minute, but there was 9 months of slow starvation and a blockade that has really rendered this population as weak as it could be. So add to that bombing, shootings. We don't have all the numbers yet of how many people have been really killed. There are hundreds of people who are unaccounted for, thousands of people who are, tens of thousands of people who are congregated in the capital. And that's just very dangerous, you know. And if Azerbaijan starts attacking again, everyone is in one place. They're trapped. The Armenians of Artsakh are trapped. They're taking shelter in schools and hospitals, churches, the airport. And they're shell-shocked and terrified at the moment.
And what do you think are the immediate needs of the people in Artsakh? And how can these needs, or how did these needs change over the past 8 months? Or now I should say 9 months.
They changed by getting worse because, whatever trickle of humanitarian aid Azerbaijan might have been allowing in at the beginning, it just got worse and worse. So what they need is, more than anything, is protection at the moment, because, life comes first. But they also need fuel, they need food, they need electricity, they need safety, they need to be able to move. They want to leave now, this is a population that has been there for, not the currently alive people, but the Armenians of Karabakh are indigenous. They've been there for thousands of years. And so for them to be saying, get me out of here is a really, really, really big deal. They weren't saying that before. Now they want to leave and they can't, because Azerbaijan is blocking the corridor, and it's very unsafe. They need to be internationally escorted out. There needs to be an assisted evacuation to protect them from further harm.
And how is the infrastructure, the critical infrastructure like hospitals, schools, public utilities, is it holding up still under blockade and the attack now?
Well, we did see during the bombardment that civilian infrastructure was targeted. So it depends. First of all, those schools or residential homes that were bombed are obviously not going to be safe. And without fuel, without electricity, there's only so much that they do need shelter, so at least they have that. But it's unsafe because we have seen that Azerbaijan does not respect international humanitarian law. They don't respect the principle of distinction. They claim to do so, but the more you have a gathering of vulnerable people in a place like a church or a school, unfortunately, the more vulnerable they are, because it's easier to kill more of them. Right?
Exactly.
They know where they are. Yeah, exactly. And, the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh are considered by the Azerbaijani government to be, all of them, to be terrorists because they are separatists. This concept cannot be equated. When you have a persecuted population that, for no reason other than a gerrymandering random decision by Stalin, at some point in history, that, okay, we're going to call this Azerbaijan, that's not really fair, right? So there's an understanding that they don't necessarily want to live under Azerbaijani rule. That doesn't make them terrorists. And so once you equate that, you have an entire population that is deemed criminal, and that becomes then, in their eyes, a legitimate target to attack. So it's really dangerous for them right now, yeah.
And does the situation in Artsakh meet the criteria of genocide under international law, especially Article 2C of Genocide Convention?
Yes, so we have had an expert report by Luis Moreno Ocampo, who is the former and inaugural prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, who in August, but I have been, in my eyes, there has been already a case under the Genocide Convention. I'm really happy that Luis Moreno Ocampo said it. Under Article 2C specifically, this is the act of genocide whereby you deliberately inflict on a group conditions of life that are calculated to bring about its physical destruction, the circumstances of the blockade, which lead to starvation, can constitute that sort of genocidal act. So yes, his report has been endorsed by other experts, and there is, under the Genocide Convention, you don't have to wait until a genocide is already happening. You just have to have enough indicators that says it's likely to happen, and then you have an obligation to prevent it. We have been there for a long time. So it is very disingenuous but once you acknowledge that as a state or as a decision maker, then you have an obligation to act, which is why countries don't want to use the G word, because that means they have to do something about it. The Rwandan genocide, it took years before people started calling it by its name. So, yes.
Well, it's inconvenient truth, right? It's always better not to name it and then not to act.
It's just easier. And I understand that, the international community has its hands full. We're not the only crisis in the world, but it's not going to work to just focus on one crisis and not the other. We have to give equal bandwidth to all crises, or it's just, it's going to be lopsided, and people will keep trying to get away with crimes if they see they can.
Yep.
And what about the topic that International Court of Justice has issued provisional measures demanding Azerbaijan to lift the blockade? Have these measures been effective?
And it's not once. They have done it 2 or 3 times by now.
They definitely did it twice, in the sense that, so that was actually the most powerful order that has, in the context of the current crisis, it's an extremely powerful order. The International Court of Justice is the highest court in the world, and their orders are absolutely binding. So the order is very clear: lift the blockade. And yes, we have not seen Azerbaijan implement this order. That doesn't mean that in the long run, the order itself will not have proven to be effective. Because every time we see a condemnation on Azerbaijan's behavior, we see a reference to this order. It is very important. When Azerbaijan installed this checkpoint. So not only did they ignore the order, they made it worse. You know what I mean? They made the blockade even worse. They solidified it. So Armenia went back to the ICJ to ask them to, change the order to make Azerbaijan try to understand, you're not complying with the order. And the ICJ reiterated its order. So yes, it's been a double order of sorts. And Azerbaijan doesn't seem to think or feel that they have to follow the rules. They just make them up as they go along because they abide by the might is right principle. We're stronger, we'll do whatever we want. And the international community isn't doing enough to explain or make Azerbaijan understand that that's not okay, right? So it is a problem in terms of the global order, because if they get away with it, then other countries will say, hey, well, maybe I can do the same, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. So what do you think should be done in terms of action from the international community to prevent further escalation and humanitarian catastrophe, which is, in my opinion, already happening? It's not.
It is.
It's already happening.
Yeah, I'll jump right into it. I think it's long overdue, but it's time for sanctions. We need sanctions. I would go all the way to military intervention because the situation is so dangerous. But I know that is the last resort. And before that, we do have an economic coercive measure, which is sanctions. They're never going to, well, I won't say never, they're less likely to pass through a UN Security Council type sanctions because we've got the Permanent Five. Anyone that vetoes, it won't go through. But countries like the United Kingdom, the United States, and it's not a country, but the EU, if they imposed sanctions, we would see an immediate change in Azerbaijan's behavior. And it wouldn't take much. I understand that there's a heavy reliance on Azerbaijan for energy at the moment, given Russian sanctions. What people don't realize is that Azerbaijan is diverting Russian gas and oil to Europe.
Yeah.
So, people are actually buying Russian gas, but whatever, that's a separate subject. It's not a separate subject. It's very, very relevant.
Well, interconnected,
They're super, I mean, it doesn't make sense. And, I can't help but wonder, they must know. You must know that you're actually buying Russian oil.
I'm sure they know.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the reason of the silence from everywhere. So in your bio, it also mentioned you have this expertise on the responsibility to protect. So what is this responsibility to protect doctrine, and does it apply in this situation in Artsakh?
Absolutely. It applies to any situation where you have atrocity crimes being committed. So the doctrine of the responsibility to protect, it's an international norm. It's a global commitment that the world took in 2005 to prevent what we saw in 1994 with the Rwandan genocide in the former Yugoslavia, to make sure that this never happens again. That whole never again, yet again and again. So it's actually taken on a form of sort of soft law. It's not hard law. It's not like a strict rule, but it's really, really important. And it's to ensure that the crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and ethnic cleansing don't happen again. So it has 3 pillars. The first is obviously every state has the responsibility not to put its populations through that. Azerbaijan is failing in that responsibility. So the second pillar then becomes the wider international community has a responsibility to assist states in meeting their obligations to protect their populations from these crimes. The international community has offered to assist Azerbaijan in this respect. Azerbaijan is refusing. They don't want any interference from anyone in how they deal with the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh. So then you have the third pillar, which is then the international community has a responsibility to take appropriate collective action in a timely and decisive manner. They have to act. They have to intervene, and they have to do this. There are many different ways they can do this. At this stage, long story short, I think we're at sanctions. We need sanctions because they will actually be effective. So it applies to Artsakh. It's applied to Artsakh for a long time, but more than ever now. I mean, if you see a government bombing its own people it claims to be its own people, how can we, like, what more do we need? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's it's looking at also the news, how the news represented, like announcing people as terrorists, and then so we start bombing because they are terrorists. It's hype of the hypocrisy, So how can we really raise global awareness about the escalating crisis in news, that people really understand what's going on, and not put false news or kind of double morality news here and there? So what do you think should be done?
Well, I mean, shows like this help a lot, to give a voice to the voiceless. And I think it's really scary, the age of disinformation that we live in, how easy it is to pump propaganda and convince people. It's not their fault, but I think that we as individuals need to be more vigilant about the information that we consume and educate ourselves better, because it can happen so fast, and before you know it, an entire population can be wiped out because we were looking the other way. We have more information available to us than ever before, so we can't get lazy, and we have to be more vigilant also about the way we understand. The thing about terrorists, that is very Azerbaijani narrative, and they do keep pumping it out. Yep. When you look at the media, you see some of that being repeated, and it's it's just, I don't know. It's a race against time, It's trying to get the message out well and quickly.
And as long as the Western governments keep their eyes shut, or they don't want to hear anything about Azerbaijan, they will let this fake news spread. So on going on the more deeper side, so what would be the ramifications if the international community does not do anything or fails to act now?
The main ramification will be the perpetration of an atrocity crime, which we as a global community have repeatedly said no to. It is a human rights violation here is a human rights violation everywhere, an international crime here. It is an international crime not because it happens internationally, but because it is a crime against all of humankind. It sets a precedent, So these are situations that demand our immediate and unwavering attention. They really, really do. So the immediate ramification would be ethnic cleansing, or rather genocide at this point. And then the more global ramification will be that another authoritarian regime has won through force, through criminal action, with impunity, and that has a domino effect for the rest of the world. It will make the world a darker place, inevitably. It's not going to be concentrated just to this region. Armenia, as small as it is, and Nagorno-Karabakh, because what happens in Karabakh will spill over into Armenia and will become this black hole that serves as like a vacuum that will suck the rest of the world into the, you know what I mean? Like, this is actually a problem we can easily fix. Yeah. So, Yeah.
I mean, Sheila, when you say that, my hair stand up on my hands, because it's like, it's happening, and like people who are supposed to do something, they are not doing it, and it's always in the last years, it looks like, or many years, till it doesn't concern you, you are okay in your little comfortable house and comfortable country, as long as it didn't come to you. So it's like, it's okay, it's not a priority, right? But when it comes to you unexpectedly, only then people start acting. But why? Why can't we act now,
I mean, I think it's already coming to them. I want them to see that everything is interconnected. We care about Ukraine because it's so close to Europe. So, okay, but if you want to fight Ukraine, if you want to help Ukraine, you have to fight Russia. If you want to fight Russia, you have to help Armenia. And you have to help Nagorno-Karabakh, because Russia, they're all linked. We have to pay attention to this. We have to fight Azerbaijan. It's like a mini Russia. Do you know what I mean? In many ways, in the way that they behave. It is chilling, but I remain optimistic. I believe in the good in people, and I believe that, I have seen a rise in the attention and the language that's coming from the international community. I don't think we're far from real action. I just hope that it comes sooner than later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but what obstacles are currently preventing diplomatic talks between Azerbaijan and the Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh? Can peace be achieved between those nations?
It's a matter of will, and there will be no will on the part. So peace has to come. You cannot have peace if you shove it down someone's throat by holding a gun to their head. That's not peace. That's just like, there are a million other words for it. It's not peace. If we want real peace, that doesn't come with, later retribution or hatred, or like, peace means harmony. Peace means happiness. It means safety. It means a lot of things. We need the international community to take action to stop Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan has a very aggressive, the Azerbaijani officials have a very aggressive stance. That aggressive stance has to stop. How do you can't just tell them to stop and they'll stop. make them stop somehow. So you do that through, a reward and punishment principle. If they behave well, we reward them. If they misbehave, we punish them. And by punishment, it doesn't have to be like putting people in jail necessarily. It can be, okay, we're not actually going to buy gas from you anymore. Or, okay, we're not going to invest in Azerbaijan anymore or in your companies if you continue to perpetrate these human rights violations. Money and that sort of, that sort of power is so important and so easy to use and for good, So I think that the only thing preventing real diplomatic talk between Azerbaijan and the Armenians of Karabakh is the fact that there's no reason for Azerbaijan to behave any other way. It's getting away with everything the way it's doing it now.
I'm just afraid that the sanctions may not stop them. We have thousands of sanctions on Russia. Still, they're doing what they're doing.
Azerbaijan is different. Azerbaijan is different. It relies, and I'm even going to say we don't have to sanction, like stop buying their oil and gas, but they have assets outside of Azerbaijan. They have them, like tons of them in the UK. I'm sure in Swiss banks and stuff. You can freeze some assets, put a travel ban. It'll shake them up.
No,
it'll shake them up.
Steps here, yeah.
But
we can try.
But we did the same with Russia. I mean, froze their assets, put a travel ban on all their leaders and oligarchs. Because
Azerbaijan is not Russia. Azerbaijan is not Russia. They're not that big. They're not that powerful.
Okay, because in case of Russia, the Chinese jumped in and filled in the gap which was created by the EU and the West.
Yeah. I mean, we have to try, I think. It's speculation. I think it would have an effect, a positive effect. It wasn't completely negative with Russia either. I mean, they did hurt from it. It did hurt them a little bit. But yes, it didn't stop the war per se.
Yeah.
But we don't know what didn't happen. We don't know how much more damage they could have caused to Ukraine if the sanctions weren't imposed, right?
Very true. But there is also, I read an article that where the leaders of Azerbaijan mentioned that it's not only about Artsakh, but it's also about other parts of Armenia so they want to create a land bridge between Azerbaijan and Turkey. So this is just the start. If they're allowed to get away with this, they will now go for a direct invasion of Armenia also.
That rhetoric has already started again, and it's terrifying. But, there's a very big difference in that the Republic of Armenia is a member state of the United Nations. It has internationally recognized borders. Karabakh was a disputed region. That's why the world was a little bit more hands-off-ish. Separatist movements are not popular in the world. As much as they have strong human rights components, they're really unpopular. But invading another country is the biggest no-no. And I think that they know that as much as they do claim Armenia as historical Azerbaijan, whatever, sorry, but it would be a huge mistake for them to go that far. But I wouldn't put it past them to try, because they're so emboldened right now. They're so drunk on victory that they might make that mistake.
And don't forget, their supporters like Turkey and everybody is giving them massive support.
Yeah.
So if we look forward, so what immediate actions should the international community take right now to prevent further escalation and this catastrophe?
An international presence, to the extent that, they will need Azerbaijan's consent to send an international presence, and you can get that consent if you threaten to impose sanctions if they don't consent. I would say something like along those lines, that you can't just leave this population to their own devices right now and believe the things that Azerbaijan says. So let's not be willfully blind anymore. It's not convenient. As convenient as it may be, that's not acceptable anymore. And so to just, it's one of these, I feel like, one of these longstanding things on your to-do list that when you do it, you realize, oh, that didn't take very much time at all. It could be so easy if there was just a little bit more robust action. So I would say to send in an international presence, preferably with some military support, but that's, very controversial, and continue to use strong language because they do thrive on the idea that they have international support. But the less both sides' language we see, and the more, one side sort of condemning language, the more I think they will adjust their behavior.
I have now burning question.
Oh, then go ahead.
Sheila, as in Armenia, why it's so important that Nagorno-Karabakh, people of Artsakh, keep their autonomy, keep their land, and why it's so important? Why would you say that? Because some people say, yeah, not a big deal. We did it many times in U.S., in America with indigenous people, in other parts of the world. So why it's so important still to provide them this dignity and stay in their homelands?
I mean, I love freedom, and if anyone loves freedom, that's the best reason. And freedom means being able to live according to how you feel is your way of life. And so long as that doesn't hurt anyone else, we should be allowing each other to do that. Now, the Armenian culture and heritage is extremely ancient. It's rich. It's a very deep part of some people's identity, and we were almost wiped off the face of the earth a little over 100 years ago. It's not unique to Armenians. The fabric of humanity is made by these threads that are these beautiful cultures that we don't want to lose, because then we lose a bit of our humanity with it. Every time you lose a culture, it's so beautiful. I love seeing how different people eat and different people dance, and what word do you use to say this? That's what makes us human. Why would we be okay with losing that? That's almost like, that makes me really sad. But more than anything, the freedom to express ourselves the way we see fit, and that could be in a cultural identity, that can be in the way we, I don't want my name to be Sheila anymore. I want my name to be something else. It would just be nice if you respected that, whatever. It's just a matter of freedom. And that, I think, makes for a much more beautiful world to live in.
I remember my son when he was 4, my elder son, he came home once and says, I want to change my name. I said, in Netherlands, it's fine. Just go to the command and register. What do you want your new name to be? He said, James Bond.
I don't know if they would have let that. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sheila, can you please share with us also how can our audience support Artsakh? What can they do?
Well, spread the word, and use the power, I think, of whatever social media outlet that you're on to spread that word. It's that, I think, is our most powerful currency of the day. And if anybody wants to get even more involved, I mean, there are many, many ways, either contributing to humanitarian causes, calling on humanitarian organizations or international organizations, their governments especially, to act. And there's a wide array, but I think the most important element is the most dangerous thing that can happen to the Armenians of Artsakh right now is that they would be forgotten. So if there is space in your audience's hearts and minds to keep a little place for them and not to forget them, that would be already enough. But yeah, so tweet, retweet, stand by us.
Yeah, that for sure they can do. And what about a big call to action message for global leaders in politics, in business, in whatever positions they are in the world who can really do something, what would you say to them?
Sanction Azerbaijan. Sanction Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Sheila, for being with us today on such a short notice. And we do our best to make the peace coming back to this place. Because, I mean, we only thrive when people around are also happy. You cannot build your happiness on the ruin of life of other people.
Yes, thank you so much for saying that. And thanks for having me today.
Thank you very, very much. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
So, dear viewers, with this, we finish the 4th episode of Season 7. And next episode, we will travel to another country with an amazing product. Thank you for watching us. And you can always reach us on apply@iisolutions.ch. I reply apply@iisolutions.ch. Bye for now.
Sanctions for Azerbaijan. Hey, we hope you have been inspired by the remarkable stories that shape impact investing worldwide.
Make sure you subscribe to our channel not to miss any future episodes.
Contact us if you want to support our guests or be the next TV show guest yourself.
Join the awesome impact community and invite your friends to do the same.
You can find us on TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, podcast, anywhere in your favorite social media.
We look forward to sharing the next episode with you. And remember,
together we create a truly sustainable future.